All right, welcome back to another explainer. Let's be real for a second. If you're a club-level chess player who opens with 1e4, the classic king's pawn, you have absolutely been in this exact situation. You make your opening move, you're mentally gearing up for a nice, classical, logical game, and your opponent just instantly hits you with 1.c5, the Sicilian defense. Cue the collective groan, right? It's like you suddenly have the urge to just offer a draw on move 2. You just know you're about to step into this massive minefield of razor-sharp tactics, insanely heavy theory, and aggressive counterattacks. But listen, it really doesn't have to be that way. Today we're going to build a practical, highly effective game plan to tackle the Sicilian head-on. And the best part? You won't need the memory of a grandmaster to pull it off.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll quickly cover the Sicilian menace, the Open Sicilian dilemma, and then dive into our smart solution, the Anti-Sicilians. After that, we'll explore the top 3 systems, extract the core winning themes, and finally, build your practical repertoire. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the Sicilian menace and Black's combative response.
So, to really understand why this opening is such a threat, we have to look at the board. The Sicilian defense begins with the moves 1e4 by white, pushing that pawn in front of the king 2 squares. And Black responds with 1c5, moving the pawn in front of their queenside bishop. Notice what's happening here. Instead of meeting your central pawn with their own central pawn in a symmetrical way, Black is fighting for the center from the flank. Specifically, they are aggressively clamping down on that crucial d4 square right from move 1. Now, this isn't just some quirky setup. It is deeply strategic. By moving a flank pawn, Black immediately creates an asymmetrical pawn structure. And this imbalance, it's exactly what gives Black higher chances to play for a win compared to those quieter, symmetrical openings. It's incredibly ambitious, it's a combative response, and honestly, if you, as White, aren't properly prepared for this structural asymmetry, you can get completely swept off the board before you even finish developing your pieces.
Section 2, the Open Sicilian dilemma. Here is where club players get lost in the forest of theory.
The standard Open Sicilian happens when White plays 2 nf3, developing the kingside knight, and then follows up with 3 d4, pushing the queen's pawn to blow the center of the board wide open. Sounds awesome in theory, right? Well, the problem is that Black then gets to choose from a frankly terrifying menu of responses. There's the Najdorf, where you might have to navigate the razor-sharp English attack. There's the Dragon, which invites the blood and thunder Yugoslav attack, literally a situation where players are just racing to checkmate each other. Then there's the Sveshnikov, the Taimanov, the Khan. Every single one of these systems is its own distinct universe. To play the attacking plans properly against them, you have to memorize professional levels of move-by-move theory.
So I just have to ask you, do you actually have the time to memorize all of this? We are talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of key variations. In the Open Sicilian, if you forget your preparation on, say, move 15 in one of these sharp lines, you don't just get a slightly worse position. No, you simply get checkmated. For most of us with, jobs and lives outside of chess, it's just not practical.
Section 3, Anti-Sicilians, a strategic sword against the dragon.
And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast. We're pivoting to the elegant solution, Anti-Sicilian systems. Now, I want to be clear. These are not cowardly run-and-hide alternatives. They are smart, practical weapons. They cut the theoretical load by intentionally steering the game into recurring, familiar structures. Instead of playing on Black's highly theorized turf, you force them into a game you understand better. You trade those chaotic, memorization-heavy, sharp tactics of the open lines for strategic, club-level practicality. And guess what? White scores comparably well with these systems, but with a tiny fraction of the study time.
I really want you to internalize this quote straight from our source material. The Open Sicilian requires more theory than the practical results justify for most amateurs. This is incredibly empowering, isn't it? It completely validates your frustration and confirms that if you are below a 2200 ELO rating, which let's face it, is the vast majority of us, Anti-Sicilians are fundamentally the more efficient, logical choice if you actually want to improve your win rate.
Section 4, Top 3 Anti-Sicilian Systems. Let's look at your practical weapons. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is our first weapon, the Alapin variation. It's triggered by 2.c3, just pushing the pawn in front of your queenside knight 1 square. Think of this as your ultimate Swiss Army knife. By playing c3, White is preparing to push their d-pawn to d4, building a really strong classical center. It's totally universal. It works against practically any Black setup. You instantly bypass all that Najdorf and Dragon theory we just talked about. And our sources note you really only need to learn about 15 to 20 key positions to play the Alapin effectively. It is the lowest theory option out there that still yields absolutely fantastic practical results.
Next up, for those of you who lean toward being more positional players, we have the Rossolimo variation. This arises after 2 nf3 and then 3 bb5, swinging your kingside bishop out to attack. The core idea here is often to just chop off that knight on c6 and intentionally double black's pawns, inflicting long-term structural damage. It's a highly strategic approach that really aims for endgame advantages. And hey, if you doubt its venom, just note that this is a serious tournament weapon used regularly by former world champion Magnus Carlsen to avoid deep, open Sicilian prep. If it's good enough for Magnus, it's good enough for us, right?
Finally, we have the closed Sicilian. This is characterized by the moves 2 nc3 and eventually fianchettoing the bishop with g3, which basically means you push the knight's pawn up one so you can tuck your bishop safely onto the longest diagonal of the board. This is the quietest option on our list. It avoids all open Sicilian theory and leads to a slow, methodical, positional buildup. White typically aims for a creeping kingside expansion, slowly pushing the f-pawn to f4. It's absolutely perfect for strategic players who want a clear long-term plan without the immediate fireworks. And fun fact, world champion Boris Spassky used this brilliantly at the elite level.
Section 5. Core Strategic Winning Themes. Let's connect these ideas together.
So the crucial point here is that across all these systems, your absolute #1 priority is controlling the d5 square in the center. The whole reason black plays the Sicilian is to eventually break open the center with their d-pawn. If you can lock down that d5 square, you effectively paralyze black's counterplay. Aside from that, you want fast, sensible piece development, and particularly in sharper lines where you might castle on opposite sides of the board, meaning you tuck your king away on the queen side and they go kingside. Understanding how to effectively race your pawns is vital. You have to maintain your structural consistency and avoid mixing up your plans mid-game.
Section 6. Building your practical repertoire. Let's look at a step-by-step guide to putting this into practice.
Let's move to this and see how it builds. This is a brilliant little cheat sheet derived straight from our sources. If you are a beginner, or honestly if you just want one single opening to rule them all, look right at the top row. Just play the Alapin. It works against literally any Sicilian setup, period. Then, as you grow into an intermediate player, you can start to branch out. If black plays 2 nc6, you hit them with the Rossolimo. If they play 2 d6 heading for a Najdorf setup, you can bust out the Moscow variation, which is basically a close cousin to the Rossolimo, where you give an immediate check on b5. It's a complete, totally unified toolkit.
So how do we turn this into a daily habit? Here is your concrete action plan. First, pick just one system. We highly recommend the Alapin to start. Second, literally write down the first 10 moves of the main line. Third, find one master-level game played with this exact opening and play through it on a real board so you can feel the flow of the game. Finally, use FSRS spaced repetition. Those are the smart flashcard algorithms that show you positions right before your brain forgets them for just 10 to 15 minutes a day to drill those 15 to 20 key positions. I promise you, in a matter of weeks, you will know exactly what to do when you see one c5.
The Sicilian defense really doesn't have to be a nightmare anymore. By intentionally sidestepping the massive theoretical burden of the open lines and adopting a smart, strategic anti-Sicilian, you put the game firmly back on your terms. You force your opponent right out of their comfort zone and into yours. So my question to you is, which anti-Sicilian system will you choose to master and slay the dragon in your very next game? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy study.